Hello and welcome to Chess 58, Everyman Chess Book Reviews. I've got 3 books to show you, all pretty good I think. The first of them is The Modern Benoni by John Dockness. Doknijas. Well, there we are. It's an enormous tome. It sells for $19.99, and if you want details other than those which I'm about to give you, you can look at www.everymanchess.com. If you're in the US, this sells for $29.95, so nearly $30. The Modern Benoni is just about the most aggressive method that black can choose to counter white's 1d4. In the mainline variations, black allows white to have a predominance of central pawns, which traditionally grants the first player the advantage. However, in return, black gains the opportunity for tremendously dynamic counterplay. This places white under immediate pressure, as any inaccurate moves can prove to be disastrous. The author is a FIDE master, examines all aspects of this highly complex opening, provides the reader with well-researched, fresh and innovative analysis. And it goes on to explain about the games which are presented. You're challenged with various probing questions. I'm sure that you are. Let's just look at the index. I'm just going through it to see if there's anything. All of these are 21st century games. I won't pretend I've heard of too many of the players. Game by Galko from 1990. Well, that was over 30 years ago. Game by Chaballo, who was Yugoslav champion in the days when there was a Yugoslavia. Aronian, Caruana from the Moscow Candidates. Okay, well, it's 448 pages. That is one hell of a headache for chess. It said it came first in the under-18 2017 Canadian Youth Championships. He's written another book, Opening Repertoire, the Sicilian Najdorf, with his brother, I think, Joshua. And his bibliography is fairly straightforward, but he does quote some magnificent books. So here's 7 books. And here we are. This gives you a brief rundown. Not so brief, perhaps. There we are. You can get that in easily. The asymmetrical pawn structures. Both sides have good mobility. It's a question of what you do with it and how you respond. And let's face it, what you know. And that's where this learned tome comes in. The rook goes to e8. And the pawns, white has more space in the center. But black has counterplay on the queen's side, flank, you might like to call that. Ways to prepare b5 with rook b8, a6. In this book, I've striven to cover theory in a good amount of detail while also explaining important concepts and plans. I hope my work not only helps you to improve the Benoni, but also ignites a passion for this complex and fascinating system. And if you'll be in any doubt of that, and he doesn't say this, but he could do, and I know that he'd know it, go back to Bobby Fischer's games, but that isn't quite the point. Here we are with the flick knife attack. The first one, which is something which Mr. Beaumont played against Meston, I think I'm right in saying. And after bishop to b5, You flick the other knight, the F knight, back to D7 to parry the check. This is very much a question of holding your nerve and timing your breaks on the queen side. And there's nothing wrong with that, and it'll teach you a lot. The flick knife variation. I've never seen so much stuff on it. Wow. As you can see, he sticks in little questions. At this point, what is Black's plan? First, play the preparatory moves, rook e8 and rook, the queen rook, to a7. Then, if White takes immediate action, pushing up the f pawn and then the e pawn, your knight can go to e5 and the d can take the e5 pawn. In other words, you get disrupted, but you don't get prisoned. Here's an example of what happens when the expansion is in full hue and cry on the queen side. See those pawns? See them? These pieces are undeveloped, but they're doing their duty. They're keeping an eye, aren't they, on that little line of pawns. Don't knock it. Black is keeping his options open. His fianchetto primed. Dangerous, dangerous stuff. Dangerous stuff, good stuff. Very, very detailed. A whole page of explanation of what mostly prose 12 king h1 is slower, tucking the king away to safety, making a potential d4, f4, f5 push more venomous. I'm not sure who would think of that to say that. That's very valuable. What was the purpose of developing the knight before castling? The knight has come out to a6, and the other one has gone back, as I said before, to from f to d7. This is unusual piece configuration. White must be on his toes because some of these moves are fairly automatic. He's following a pattern, if not a sequence. We're still on the flick knife, and here we are, 47 pages into it. 55 pages into it. Oh, we're going to go for bust. He's again setting out questions, answers. I'm not going into too much detail. Well, there's a lot of detail, but he's not blinding you with science, shall we say. This game has examined the main A4 systems. Meanwhile, the game is well met by B5, in other words. Again, queenside pawn expansion. There are multiple ways White can win a pawn, but Black receives excellent compensation. Chapter 2 is about the 4 pawns and Machinus attacks. Machinus was not too famous a player. I think it was a Soviet IM in the days when there were such things. This is pretty weighty stuff where the king gets displaced. The black king gets displaced to f8 fairly early on. Well, this is all new to me. I'll show you one or more of the diagrams and you'll probably declare it's quite new to you. Look. Black is the exchange down. There's more than one way to skin a cat. Black finishes the rest of the game with nice technique. as we saw, 12 rook d8 is objectively sound, and white is the one who must fight for equality. Right. I see. This is a game from the Finnish League. And once again, with so many games now online, games of all textures and expertise, and thud and blunder get looked at, don't they? Lots on the Machinus. He's obviously picked several little-known systems like the Flick Knife and, as I say, the Machinus Pawn Storm, and he's gone into them in some depth. He calls this the modern Benoni with an early h3. They were a bad move in the Benoni because white is seeking to bury black's queen's bishop. Well, more and more. 170 pages. We're still in the foothills of this remarkable opening. Defense. Talking about 7 bishop f4, a fashionable system and one of the serious tests of Benoni. He recommends just castling. Sorry, he recommends fianchettoing on the king side. And instead of playing a6, you can play knight a6, a line I've also played, with the idea that the knight can come back to c7. Neither b5 or b6 can be supported. I'll show you again some diagrams to give you a flavour. There you are. See that? See the knight on the rim? There. And once again it can come in to c7. Lots of questions being fired by the author. I hand it to him. It must have taken absolute age to do all this. It's really rather good. The fianchetto. So that's the queen, the king bishop fianchetto for white. This is a game from Gibraltar. Stuart Conquest's lovely gathering on that monkey-bound rock. Here's chapter 6 is about the classical. With rook e8. He doesn't rush to develop his black doesn't rush to develop his queenside pawns. The game at the highest level, Iranian Caruana. How do you say it? The Knight's Tour variation. I think that was a Taimanov, not so long ago, where the knight goes to from g1 to f3 to d2 to c4. The point being that it's fairly well covered there, and could be said to be provocative, because it takes a little longer, but it also provides black with considerable headaches. Lots on the Knight's Tour. Something on the same-ish. 7 knight g2, or 7 bishop d3, and 8, knight g, e2. Quieter moves, but, all sound stuff. He asked the question, how should knight respond in this position? It's early on, but it's already become critical. See it? Yeah, if I can even hold it still. How should he respond? And he gives a clue. E4, E5 is coming. Telling me it is. It would be nice if the F6 knight had an attractive square to move to. Will it be G8? Will it be D7? Will it be H5? Will it be G4? We just don't know. In other words, if you study this book, you will know, apart from the fact that he tells you the answer in good time. Well, you'll have realized that I really do rate this pretty highly. It's a lovely book, and it's a system I've played all my life, off and on. I look forward to playing it again. There's an opening repertoire summary, and then an index of variations. So I'll just say them again. The flicked knife attack, the 4 pawns and Machinus attacks, the modern, 6 knight f3 and 7 bishop f4, the fianchetto, chapter 5, the fianchetto, white's kingside fianchetto, the classical, the knight's tour, the same-ish, 6 knight f3 and bishop g5, and a nice index of games. I don't know how many there are, about 30, but there'll be lots of games in the notes. So there you are. When you see this, pick it up, give it your time. Our next book is much more difficult to understand, but it may be something which will last you a lifetime, and not as an opening book can a comparatively short time. First, the idea, and then the move, it says. In other words, think of what you want to do, and subsequently, but not immediately, and don't worry about it. Decide how you're going to go about it. There's the table. There's the cover. And the author is a grandmaster. Not well known in Europe. He's from Paraguay. But he lives in Spain, so he lives in Europe, doesn't he? First the idea and then the move. This is a quote from Najdorf, no less, the Argentinian-born Polish grandmaster. Planning is not a straightforward matter. A good plan might be very short, lasting 2 or 3 moves. Another plan might be entirely the game itself to implement. Plan can be ambitious and complex, modest and simple. In chess, as in life, he really waxes philosophic, doesn't he? In chess, as in life, circumstances can change quickly, and when they do, new plans are needed. It says the author's a grandmaster and experienced coach. Typical structure, advantage in space, maneuver in play, simplification, and finally, attack and defense. In other words, he covers a broad sweep. If you want to take the game to the next level, then planning move by move will enable you to do this. It's a pleasing cover. There are 2 pages of complete games and a massive amount of games by the world champion and his challengers. In fact, I can't see a single game here quoted. 1, 2, about 4, which are not contested by world-class grandmasters. I've almost never seen that in a book before. Clearly, the author has in mind going to the highest level and taking his readership, which I imagine by now would be considerable, because Franco is published a fair few books. Fair few. He uses the question and answer system, which I like. The book is $19.99, which is a blow, which is an absolute giveaway price. I would think it is fairly advanced. I wouldn't have thought this was suitable for anybody much below 1700, 1800 ELO. In other words, the old ECF 150, 160. I'm sorry to say that. I wouldn't like to put somebody off who's dying to dive into it, but as you go through it, I think you would see that this is a complex jungle with many aspects covered. But I'm sure it's not without its lighter touches or little points of humour. And I like it very much. I don't always like every book I review, as has been pointed out to me, not just by my colleagues, but also by publishers. But I think I like this. I think what I would do is just break it up into bite-sized segments and work through a couple of examples, maybe set up a third to think about. Don't even necessarily have to follow what he said. Set it up on your board and see what you think. You don't have to use your computer, but if you do, well, that would afford you, I hope, if that's how you like to work, another dimension. There we are. The author is Zenon Franco from Paraguay. Grandmaster, thank you. Our next book is by my friend Cyrus Lakdawala. And this is about the young man who is about to, I'm writing this in mid-November, in a couple of weeks, play a match for the World Championship. If he wasn't about to do that, I would not be recommending this book any the less. He is one hell of a player. This was published this year by Everyman Chess. The author has written an astronomical amount of books. I don't know how many he's written, about 40 or something. And this is a collection of complete games. Let's see what opens he likes to play, because I don't know. He likes the Lopez, and he likes to defend with the Grunfeld, but he likes the Lopez with white. In other words, he's a classical man. Many games against Carlsen here, and he has, unlike so many of Carlsen's challengers, or supposed challengers, or heir presumptives, or heir apparents, he has a damn good score against young Magnus. In fact, in certain time limits, he may be even ahead. I can't get clever and quote you the statistics, but believe you me, we're in for an interesting match. 14 games, they've extended it. Is it in Dubai, somewhere like that, at the end of the month? It won't be a happy Christmas in Norway if Carlsen loses spectacularly, and I don't expect him to. I don't know who's going to win, and I'm not going to make any empty predictions, but I hope for a close and interesting match. They aren't always, are they? But I think in this case, recent qualifiers have been match fit. Others, like Galfand or Anand, when he was world champion or when he was defending his title, and Kasparov obviously in 2000 against Kramnik. I thought it was poor show. Perhaps I shouldn't be saying that. Perhaps I shouldn't, or if I am saying it, I should be demonstrating games to prove it. You know, where's your proof? Where's your proof? But that's what I think. An interesting game here from Dortmund 2018, and it's French against Nepo by Meier. I can't pronounce it. It's the French name, Meier. And he plays the Rubinstein variation. With 6. Knight takes knight, knight takes knight on f6, and then knight e5. Not the only choice you can play. Luke McShane inherited this from Spielman. and in an earlier generation, it was played by Peter Clark. White has more space, as he inevitably does against the French. But Black has a hand in proceedings. Don't you worry, he definitely has a hand in proceedings. It isn't easy to be a heavy 350-point underdog, as Lopez was below. He's playing a Nimzo Indian. The main reason, this is something completely different, but I'm quoting from the same book. The main reason people go for 1b3 is because they want a one-on-one fight rather than memorizing and reproducing 25 moves of theory. After I wrote Nimzo Indian Last Attack, move by move, I was amused by one negative reviewer declared that the book was informative and well written, yet still gave it a poor review for the sole reason that 1b3 is a lame opening, which only grovelers like. I'm very sorry, it isn't. Tell that to Jobova, the world's leading exponent. I was shocked to discover 1b3 was my highest scoring opening with White, with an over 90% ratio. In other words, 90 to 10. And that is Cyrus Lakdawala speaking, not Carlson. He's played a similar system that Larson played against Spassky over 50 years ago in Belgrade in the USSR versus the rest of the world match. I'm not sure that that's the exact position that was reached, but it possibly was. I wonder if he quotes the game. Nowadays, there's a bit of a bias against the older historic. No, I don't think he does. He would know it, and he would know it very well. He deals with Nepo's building up. It says gathering power. The road to Magnus from 2019 to this year. And he's winning the candidates with 8.5 out of 14. Obviously, the tournament was delayed in the middle because of that unfortunate jadoo that we call COVID. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is no laughing matter. But nevertheless, chess will out. Hopefully, a champion will emerge. He's dealing with 3c5 in the advanced Caracan, beloved of Kengis and Keith Arkle. If you're interested in Keith Arkle's games or his pronouncements, Camberley Chess Club are on, let me get this right, the 14th of November at 8 o'clock in the evening. If you Google Camberley Chess Club, which is in Surrey, regardless of where you live, you will be let in after maybe, they wonder who you are and everything. And you can see the Zoom lesson given by Keith, a very friendly guy and very hardworking grandmaster, particularly and famous in the realms of long games and gritty endings. Very interesting comments here about the openings. Almost as if they've reinvented some of them. I mean, to quote that game with 1b3 and then not mention Larsen, let alone Nimzovich, and that's what I call creative. Tongue-in-cheek. But no, I have to repeat this, and no disrespect to any of the grandmasters or authors. This is from the Legends of Chess, Rapid 2020, and it is a game by Ivanchuk. Ivanchuk, a player who has not gone quietly, even though I'm told he plays in drafts tournaments from time to time. Well, rather him than me. Here we are, another B3 game. Classical chess is the fundamentalist, while hypermodernism is an attempt at reform movement. Nepo is at the heart a member of the classical school, which it does sometimes flirt with hypermodernism, as here. Yes, we must ask ourselves, is he going to do that when he faces Carlsen? It's going to be a short match, 14 games. A lot of old people like me would probably say, oh, that's not enough games. But it's a fair whack. And they've played it quite a lick, aren't they? There's not too many rest days and, sick notes flashing around. Mr. Nakamura, about whom we hear slightly less than once we did. I think perhaps it was thought he was going to contest the World Championship. He well might, but he's going to have to put his skates on. Question. What was Black's last move? Gave up the bishop pair in an open position, while on the previous move he weakened his central squares by pushing the e-pawn to the 5th rank. Didn't he have anything better? Comes the answer, not really, no. It just to give you a glimpse of Black's troubles, let's consider the lateral move. And after that, there's 4 moves, 4 lines of analysis. Good stuff, I'm sure. If you like this sort of thing, it's another game with 1b3. I didn't realize that Nepo was quite such a specialist. My advice to you is, even if you aren't interested in flank openings, 1b3 and all that grows out of it, it's quite interesting. Transposition to straightforward lines, maybe in the English or even the birds. It's quite a bit in common with the birds. I think that's how Larsen originally came to it. Selection of little puzzles. What would Nepo do? I know what he'd do. He'd play a lot better than I would. I also know what he would do. Dig his heels in. Let's see how many positions there are. Looks like about 50. 52. Some of which probably are quite complex, and others again are fairly easy to understand. Just treat them as bits of games. If you're studying seriously, you might want to put your head in your hands and think yourself into the tournament hall. On the other hand, you may just say, well, I don't know. and look it up, go, that's brilliant play, which it normally is. Not always. Not even the top grandmasters know all the answers. If they did, chess would be played out, wouldn't it? Index of openings, told you that before. Index of complete games. I've drawn your attention to that also. Ladies and gentlemen, we have spoken for over 35 minutes. There's Nepo and he's Russian. I wish him well in the forthcoming World Chess Championships against Magnus Carlsen, who has for some years now been world champion. Will he be dethroned? Will we have a new champion? I don't know, because nobody does. But my prediction is it will be a close and interesting match. Thank you very much for listening. Once again, I repeat, if you're interested in Everyman Chess, go to www.everymanchess.com and tell them that the Chess Parrot sent you. I've been James Pratt. End of stream.